Between 1861 and 1865, the United States was consumed by an internal conflict that left up to 800,000 people dead. To this day, that remains a higher death toll than every other American war combined. In 1819, 40 years before the first shot was fired, the nation existed in a state of precarious geographical and economic balance. The political map was evenly split, 11 free states in the north and 11 slave states in the south. The North was an industrializing economy of factories, while the South operated an agrarian empire fueled by 4 million enslaved people. This numerical tie in the federal government kept the peace, but it created a timeline where the addition of any new territory would destroy the country's internal stability. That stability vanished as the nation pushed west. Aggressive expansion into new territories forced a constant political battle over whether new states would permit slavery. In 1820, Congress attempted to settle the issue by drawing a physical boundary across the continent. The Missouri Compromise established the 36 degrees 30 minutes latitude line, declaring that future states north of the mark would be free and those to the south would be slave states. Tension escalated through the 1850s with the Fugitive Slave Act, a law making the federal government responsible for returning escaped slaves, effectively forcing Northern citizens to participate in the institution of slavery. The friction reached a breaking point in 1860 with the election of Abraham Lincoln, a candidate committed to stopping slavery's expansion into Western territories. Southern leaders viewed Lincoln's victory as a death sentence for their cotton-based economy. Within months, 7 states seceded from the Union to form the Confederate States of America. Decades of legislative attempts at balance had failed. A single nation could not sustain 2 conflicting moral and economic identities simultaneously. The conflict turned violent in April 1861 when Confederate forces opened fire on the federal garrison at Fort Sumter. The Union entered the war with a massive industrial advantage. The North controlled a population of 18.5 million people, the majority of the nation's factory output, and a superior network of railroads to move troops and equipment. The Confederacy had a total population of only 9.5 million, more than a third of whom were enslaved. However, they held a strong defensive position and the tactical expertise of military leaders like Robert E. Lee. Southern tactical skill led to early, surprising victories at battles like Bull Run, which quickly corrected Northern assumptions that the rebellion would be suppressed in a matter of weeks. It became clear that the Union could not win through simple battlefield victories. They would have to destroy the physical and economic ability of the South to continue the fight. This handwritten document is the Emancipation Proclamation, issued by President Lincoln on January 1, 1863. It changed the legal status of 3.5 million people. By declaring that all persons held as slaves within rebelling states were free, Lincoln shifted the Union's objective. The war was now fought for the abolition of slavery as much as for the preservation of the nation. This shift provided a direct military boost. Over 100,000 freed black men joined the Union Army, providing critical manpower for the final stages of the conflict. 1863 also brought strategic breakthroughs. Following the siege of Vicksburg, Union forces took control of the Mississippi River, physically splitting the Confederacy in half and cutting off Western supplies. Simultaneously, the Confederate attempt to invade the North was stopped at the Battle of Gettysburg, resulting in a retreat that Lee's army would never fully recover from. By combining a new moral objective with the strategic severing of Southern territory, the Union permanently broke the Confederacy's momentum. In 1864, the Union adopted a strategy of total war. General William Tecumseh Sherman was authorized to lead a campaign designed to destroy the South's remaining infrastructure. During his March to the Sea, Sherman's troops systematically destroyed railroad lines, burned crops, and leveled factories, stripping the Confederacy of its ability to resupply its armies. This campaign of attrition collapsed Southern morale and resources. By early 1865, the Confederate capital at Richmond was abandoned as the Union Army closed in. In April 1865, General Robert E. Lee realized his position was no longer sustainable. He met General Ulysses S. Grant at the Appomattox courthouse to sign the terms of surrender. The surrender at Appomattox effectively dissolved the economic and social infrastructure built on slave labor. The immediate constitutional result of the war was the passage of the 13th Amendment. This amendment provided the legal finality to the war's moral shift, the permanent abolition of slavery and the freeing of 4 million African Americans. The conflict also redefined the identity of the nation. Americans stopped referring to the United States in the plural and began using the singular is, marking the final consolidation of federal authority over the individual states. However, the Reconstruction era that followed demonstrated that legal freedom did not guarantee social or economic equality. The rise of Jim Crow laws and rigid racial segregation across the South meant that while the institution of slavery was dead, the struggle for civil rights had only shifted into a new phase. The Civil War centralized federal power and industrialized the American economy, but it left a legacy of division that the nation would spend the next century attempting to resolve.